most economists, I would say, disagree with you on that, and we have seen it being passed off time and time again to the American consumer.
We have 25% tariffs that were set under President Trump's first term. I don't hear a single word, not a single word about those tariffs. No consumers in America, those were set in 2017 and 2018. No consumers in America sit here complaining about those tariffs.
Well, prices
what happens is
prices have gone up for lots of reasons.
Currencies. Oh, no. Don't talk about the Biden inflation. That's another whole gig.
She had nothing to say with that one. He got her. Finally. Good job, Howard. I was just earlier saying that you don't do that good. This brother surprised me. Not brother. Man, he's a whitey. Dana Bash looks miserable once again. I don't think it's just because charismatic Howard Lutnick had a great segment in here that she couldn't respond to. I think it's mostly because she's just miserable all the time. Hit the like button if you agree with that. Now, I'm not saying Howard Lutnick is the whiz guy that Stephen Miller is and the way he can break things down, but he did make a few good points in here, and Dana Bash had nothing to say in return. I'll give her credit. She did ask a few good questions. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. It's SeanDaniel here, filming in my pink room in Seoul, South Korea. Let's go. And no, the pink color was not my choice. It was the cheapest room.
With what President Trump said on social media, that there was much agreed to in negotiations on Saturday. What were some of the things that they agreed on in these talks in Switzerland?
The team is in Switzerland meeting with their counterparts from China, and they are hard at it. There's a lot to accomplish. There's both a lot to take care of and get off the table, and they're working hard at it. At the end of the day, they felt good. The president felt good, and I'm going to leave it to them. But it felt good yesterday. The president tweeted that out and truthed that out. But things feel really good.
As the Secretary of Commerce, I do want to ask about the fact that there are no ships carrying goods from China bound for the West Coast right now. President Trump said earlier this week that drops in imports is actually a good thing because it's going to affect people's wallets and jobs. Well, he said it's a good thing because it shows that the imports that the tariffs are working, but in reality, it's going to affect people's wallets and jobs. Truck drivers, port workers, American consumers. So my question for you is, how is that a good thing?
Well, I think the point that the president makes with his tariffs is that America has a $1.2 trillion trade deficit. That means other people are selling us goods that more than we are selling them. And that's just not balanced. It's not fair. We're losing $1.2 trillion a year, of which directly and indirectly to China, that's about $1 trillion. You know, China sells goods to Vietnam. Vietnam repackages them and sells them to us. So the idea is the president wants balanced and fair trade, and tariffs are the tool to create balanced and fair trade. It's just unsustainable for $1.2 trillion to be exported to the rest of the world, meaning our money is going to the rest of the world. It's building them up. And over time, it's taken us down. And the president's here to fix it. So that's what he's trying to do with his tariffs.
And I understand what you're talking about with regard to sort of economic policy. But there's economic policy, and then there's how people in the United States actually feel and the immediate effect on them. So just to be clear, are you saying that ultimately fixing what the president sees as a problem, which he just described, is going to mean that the American people, whether they work at a port or whether they're truck drivers or whether they're consumers, they're just going to have to suffer in the short term, maybe even longer?
No. Let's take a look at the UK deal we did we announced on Thursday, right? We opened the opportunity for Americans to export to the United Kingdom $5 billion more than they've ever had the right before. You had beef, ethanol, row crops, vegetables, fruits, cereals, sodas, machinery. I mean, just the list goes on and on. So the idea for the president is, look, we published our rates on Liberation Day. negotiate with us, bring those rates down by opening your markets to Americans who can export. So what's going to happen is we're going to have imports. Of course, our ports, we are the consumer of the world. I mean, we consume $20 trillion worth of stuff.
But
the world
that is
wants to
stopping
sell
now.
us stuff.
But it's not happening right now because
It's
of the
only
president's tariff
stopping.
policies.
No. It's only stopping. Look, we are in a negotiation with China. We agree. It has stopped 145% on China. Of course that stops it. But they're negotiating that right now. That we are optimistic that will open. But what the president's tariff policy is let's open all the markets in the world that have been closed to us. Let's get that opportunity for Americans to export to them. Let's really, really help Americans export. And of course, those people who import are going to have great businesses.
But as you well know, because you worked on the UK deal, which I'll get to in 1 second.
It's weird how many edits they have throughout this interview with the white flashes first thing. But this is why I can't trust Dana Bash. Because she tries to act like she got him right there by saying, well, there's no imports now to the U.S. from China, when he was making a logical point that we are the consumer economy. China wants to sell to us, and they're screwed if they can't. All the other details of the tariffs and UK, whatever. She makes good questions sometimes, but then she has those statements which are just ridiculous. Yes, we know it's closed right now, but that's part of the negotiation strategy, and it does not discount what Howard Lutnick says about us being the consumer economy. This is why CNN is just so untrustworthy.
But as you well know, because you worked on the UK deal, which I'll get to in 1 second, that's a very different kettle of fish than China and even some of the other countries that I know that you are trying to deal with directly. So when it comes to, again, I'm talking about American jobs and American consumers in the short term. We're heading into the summer, and it could mean, tell me if this is wrong, that a lot of the goods that Americans are used to either buying or, getting easily will either be more expensive or hard to get. We're talking about beach chairs, swimsuits, picnic supplies, fireworks. Is this something that Americans just need to understand is going to be harder to buy?
AKA everything that's made in China, which is basically almost everything we buy, she's saying is going to have higher prices. It's a good question.
Well, I think, look, the Chinese and our representatives are meeting now. So, let's just leave what's possible with China to what happens on Monday, Tuesday, and next week. But the rest of the world is open for business, right? Remember, we have a low tariff on the rest of the world while we negotiate. But our expectation is that these countries are going to open their markets, their tariffs are going to come down, the ability for us to export and grow our economy is going to be better than ever before. That's why President Trump talks about a golden age. Of course, all these countries are going to come and sell their products to us. Of course, we're going to have our shelves full of wonderful products made around the world, but we're going to make sure on their shelves that American products are finally given the fair treatment that they deserve. And I think what people forget is that we have been locked out of economy after economy after economy, and President Trump is going to break down those barriers and let us sell. Imagine this. If we can let other countries accept our standards, then our small businesses can sell online to foreign purchasers. I mean, imagine we're not allowed to do that now. It's just not fair trade, and President Trump is on trying to make it fair trade.
I don't understand sometimes why they have Howard Lutnick go on in order to combat the tariff messaging that CNN has, because I don't feel like I get a great picture from him on why the tariff strategy is beneficial for us. I do to a small degree, but when I listen to Stephen Miller break it down logically and combat what they're saying, I'm like, wow, my believing for tariffs really goes up. When I listen to Howard Lutnick, it's like he's trying to be motivating, charismatic, exciting. He seems like he has that personality. And I'm not saying he's an idiot. He's a CEO of a billion-dollar company. He's a billionaire. He's CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald in New York. But he doesn't really, for me, make the messaging strong and build my believing and conviction on what's going on and why things are going on. Let me know. Do you guys agree with that or not? Do you like Howard Lutnick? Let's keep going.
You mentioned the UK agreement. You were the lead negotiator there, aside from the president, of course. And it does, you mentioned some of the aspects of it, but one other aspect is that it keeps in place a 10% across-the-board tariff on goods imported to the U.S. from the UK. As you know, the cost of tariffs are paid by American consumers. We've been talking about this. So should Americans be prepared?
I disagree with that, you know.
Well, okay, but most economists, I would say, disagree with you on that, and we have seen it being passed off time and time again to the American consumer. But regardless of that, just on the policy, this is what I want to ask you about. Is the 10% tariff that we're seeing in the framework for the UK going to be in place for the foreseeable future?
So we do expect a 10% baseline tariff to be in place for the foreseeable future. But don't buy the silly arguments that the U.S. consumer pays. Businesses, their job is to try to sell to the American consumer. And domestically produced products are not going to have that tariff. So the foreigners are going to finally have to compete. They're going to have to compete. What happens is the businesses and the countries primarily eat the tariff. Look, we have 25% tariffs that were set under President Trump's first term. I don't hear a single word, not a single word about those tariffs. No consumers in America, those were set in 2017 and 2018. No consumers in America sit here complaining about those tariffs.
Well, prices have gone up for lots of reasons.
Oh, no. Don't talk about the Biden inflation. That's another whole gig. When President Trump in 2019 had the lowest inflation in history. So you know that this works really, really well. It works well. These countries and the businesses have to compete. Yep. They have to cut prices. You've seen it. The Asians have said they're not raising their prices. So who's paying those tariffs? The governments and the companies. They want to compete in the greatest store in the world.
But you well know that company after company, business after business have said that they're going to pass it off to the consumer. I want to ask, because you are working on other deals, of course, many of them outside of what has happened and is happening with the UK. Is that...
That was good, man. Before we hear her question, they missed a great point. No one's complaining about the tariffs in 2017, 2018. Now all of a sudden it's a bad idea because, I mean, it sounds like a crazy idea, what Trump's trying to do. She had nothing to say with that one. He got her, finally. Good job, Howard. I was just earlier saying that you don't do that good. This brother surprised me. Not brother, man, he's a whitey.
That 10% tariff kind of a baseline in the way you're approaching these other countries that you're negotiating with?
Yes, we will not go below 10%. That is just not a place we're going to go. We will, country by country, address their particular issues. So, for instance, with steel and aluminum and aircraft parts, we said those could come into the country tariff-free. Right, so Rolls-Royce engines could go on a Boeing jet that Boeing sells. And of course, you saw that Boeing announced a $10 billion deal to sell those Boeing aircraft with Rolls-Royce engines to British Airways. So that's an example how we're going to be flexible and we're going to be super smart country by country. But at least you saw the rates that were published on Liberation Day. Those countries can take those rates down if they open their markets to Americans to export. Let Americans get their stuff on these foreign governments and foreign consumers' shelves, and we'll be better as a country. I think what's happened is we just have never felt the fairness of our ability to export. Finally, the President of the United States is on our side, and that's what you're going to see in the UK, and then country after country. We're going to announce, like we did with the UK, how many tens of billions of dollars of new opportunity the President is negotiating for American small businesses and medium-sized businesses to sell their products overseas. That's the golden age that's coming, and everybody else is going to build in America to get around that tariff. Remember, there's no tariff if you build it in America.
The entire world is hoping that what you are saying does come true and waiting for the next step. I also want to wish your wife a happy Mother's Day, 4 kids. That's pretty awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Thanks so much, Dana.
Now that one seems sweeter. In my other video, the Mother's Day wish and the back and forth between the reporter with Kristen Welker was not that good. That seemed more genuine. No matter what you think about Howard Lutnick, you can see that he's just genuinely more happy than Dana Bash is. So many of these CNN anchors just give off a miserable vibe. Like they are not happy with their lives. Howard Lutnick, obviously, he seems charismatic and smooth and fun. But even when we have more serious people on CNN that go on as Trump guests, they always seem more happy and blessed and at peace with their lives than the CNN hosts. I don't know if it's because they've just sold their soul away and they do whatever the bosses tell them to do. Not saying that Trump MAGA people don't just do what Trump and the higher-ups want them to do sometimes. But have you guys noticed the difference in demeanor? Pay attention to that while you watch this video, watch future videos. Just something that stands out to me as I watch these. Hope you guys enjoyed the interview. It's CHARISMATIC here. If you did like it, consider hitting that like button or subscribing for more. You can watch another one right here. And I'm going to leave my pink room for now. Go outside. See you later.